Welcome everyone to our third installment of our Diversity and Inclusion Speaker Series. Today we're very lucky to have Carmelina Moscato with us to discuss her soccer experience and her life in the game. And thank you for being here, Carmelina. We really appreciate it. You've always been a great supporter of our club, and of course the game at the grassroots level. Just to kind of go over your resume a little bit, and it's ever growing and, always impressive. But what I have here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but 94 caps for Canada.
Correct.
And of course the 2012 Olympics bronze medalist, 13 years as a professional footballer. And, recently just finished as the League One Women's Division Commissioner. You've been a grassroots club technical director, professional coach, as well as a university coach, right? And now moving on to bigger and better things as well. So obviously an accomplished career so far. I'm sure you're not done yet, but and is there anything, or maybe you can talk about, your upbringing in the game and, how you came through the ranks. And it all sounds great. It's amazing accomplishments, but I'm sure it wasn't easy.
Yeah, exactly that. Thank you for that. All dead accurate. I haven't been a professional coach just yet. I've done the youth national teams. Okay. One of my biggest aspirations is to, hopefully that fits into the life plan and the opportunities. I would love to be a pro coach, but back to sort of where I started. Yeah, I can give the Coles notes and the highlights because of, like you said, if the end in mind is today and how the career looks today, there was a journey there, and we'll get into that. So started the game at 4 years old, Dixie Soccer Club. Basically I went through a very cookie cutter experience, but I don't want to downplay the cookie cutter experience, which was house league rep, which I know the words have changed now, but that's what my experience was. House league rep, provincial, so representative team, youth national, full national, all by the time of 19. So that had happened for me. I played between a few clubs, Dixie and Mississauga, namely Burlington at the end. And I was very lucky to have a couple key things happen in that time frame. And the biggest one was my, first of all, my first ever house league coach, Debbie, which I would love to know where Debbie is living and what she's doing today, because she was, one of the reasons I kept signing up. What an environment that she created. First female coach as a house league coach. And I believe she was a mom of one of my little teammates. So regardless, I just remember her warmth. I remember her creating a really fun environment and really made me fall in love with the ball. And so that was amazing. Then I went on to sort of representative level, and my brother took over. So my brother, Joe Moscato, took over my little girls team at around 11 years old. And he coached me for 7 years. So I had a role model in my brother. I had already looked up to him, 10 years older, and him coaching my team was, it was amazing. He fostered a great social environment for the girls, half of which I'm still in touch with to some extent, believe it or not. So really did a good job there. And then the system did its job in the sense that at the age of 15, 16, I was recognized for my talents, and Stuart Neely, Paul Nielsen, Brian Rosenfeld, all provincial coaches, started to really take my career into more of a professional mindset. So it took me from that player who was just loving the ball, grew up a little bit, but then now this is what a pro looks like, and the habits and everything else. And that really inspired me, got me noticed on the national stage. Ended my career at 19, just based on another coach, Evan Pellerud, just thinking I wasn't good enough. And I'll pause the story there. But my roots were very strong, positive, good experiences that I attribute to my success today, to be honest with you. Without that foundation, I wouldn't have been anywhere.
Yeah, great. And you said you're pausing it there and then moving into, the more higher profile, national team and also, going into adulthood as well. Can you talk about any challenges that you had, maybe just at that level, or, at 19,
Mhm.
and how you manage that, or did you have mentors, or you mentioned coaches, in your brother, and that really helped you through that, and or maybe just some ways that you manage to deal with stressors and
Mhm.
those sort of things.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, I mean, 17 years old, you're already at college and university, independent for the first time, figuring out your way in and out of national team. Very much I had a decent university career, and another female coach, actually, Paula Wilkins, with Tim Rosenfeld, Brian Rosenfeld's nephew. So I was coached by them, and being told at 19 that your international career and essentially your dream is over by your coach was a lot to handle. And I don't think I did a good job at the time processing that, because it was literally, the dream taken away. So what I did was continue in my college career the best I could. I got my degree, which was the main reason for being there, just to make sure I did well academically and do my best from a soccer perspective. And then it felt like crickets when it was all over, all this excitement, all this programming, all this attention. And it was over. It was over as quickly as it started, in a sense. So I know that that's a common feeling for a lot of women. So I remember thinking to myself, what am I going to do next? Like, I've just totally poured everything into this. So I'm 21 years old with a degree. Went to go play at the Ottawa Fury in the W League, which was the only viable women's league at the time. Very comparable to League One in the sense that it was 3 months, no pay.
Yep.
Set you up with a place to live and everything else. But I wasn't making money. And I thought, no, I think money is a priority. I think I should try to get a job here and not, maybe I'll go get my master's. And I started brainstorming. And all of a sudden I had a little tap on the shoulder by another female mentor of mine at the time, Karen Ferguson from the University of Louisville. And through my brother's showcase at Umbro, she ended up meeting my brother and saying, I'm looking for this profile person. Do you know anyone? My brother's like, I do. So he put us in touch, and I flew down to Louisville, Kentucky during my Ottawa season, and I got hired mid-season, and I sort of left the Ottawa Fury team, and I went straight to coach. Very green, as you can imagine, close in age to the players I was coaching. And because my brother had exposed me to coaching at a young age, 15, 16 years old, I was running sessions myself. He would allow me to do that within the club.
Yeah.
And I had a second passion. So for me, it was second best. I wasn't going to play professionally or for Canada anymore. So you know what? I'm going to do my best at this new endeavor. So I went down to Louisville and did that for 2 full years, got some diplomas, no licenses, just diplomas, right?
Yeah.
Just the at the time, the NSCAA ones. And, that led me to my reinvigorated national team career at 25 years old. I was still very healthy. I was not fit because I wasn't putting time into that. But a friend of mine, Kelly Parker, she had called me and said, we have a new national team coach, so you might have a chance here. Would you be willing to try again? And I sort of laughed it off. And, I had already probably not processed being told I wasn't good enough. And I just moved on so quickly and kept busy that a lot of my fears came up again. Like, I'm not good enough. Somebody's already made that very clear. Why would I try this again? And, I made a really bold decision to say, if I'm going to try again, then it has to be on my own terms. And I want to fail because I don't believe I'm good enough, not as somebody else telling me and someone else controlling my fate. So I did what I always do. I work really, really hard at something, and I put all my time and effort into being fit while I was still in the Louisville job. And my boss thought I was, I wasn't sure where it was going to go. So she was concerned, like, what are you doing? You're working out so much.
Don't leave me.
Yeah, what's going on here, And lo and behold, a few twists of fate, I ended up playing on a club team that got me noticed with Carmelina and Andrea Neal, FC Indiana. So I ended up playing in a game they were going to be at for other women. So I was strategic in the game that I put myself back in.
Yep.
Very first game in 5 years. Imagine how rusty I would have been. But I was fit. I was the fittest I had been in a long time. And still probably to this day, I put everything into that moment. And I got noticed for my work rate and some things that Carolina valued. And I'll pause it there again because that initiated another 7 years tacked on to a little pause in my career.
Yeah. Well, that's hearing that, I think is great for our players, our young players, right? And it's always the worst thing you can hear is, you're not playing on this team anymore, or you're cut,
Yeah.
or this isn't right for you. So
Right.
to hear that, at that time, that it's okay, that coach doesn't think you're the right player for the team, but with a new coach comes new opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as you hear that, you don't think, oh, forget it. I didn't make it before. I'm not going to do it again. And I think that's a great message to give to our players is, okay, if you get cut at 13, 14, it doesn't mean the next season or the season after that or whenever that you can't make that team again or play on a better team, right? It's just, sometimes it's just not the right time or the right fit. So
well, that's exactly it. And also to add to what you're saying, which is a great lesson learned kind of, for me, it was really about the idea that I could control what I could control. And I had to learn that in the hard way, because, you think to yourself, well, this person is a professional coach. Like, they know, like, what do I know? He's won a World Cup, Evan Pellerud, 1995. Like, you're thinking it's the be all and end all, but to hinge so much of your dreams on one individual and not make it something of your own, I think is the biggest mistake you can make. You really do have to make that journey your own. I had to pivot, reframe, take a pause. There were a lot of components of the story, but really I started to control what I could, and knew that if I didn't make it on the second chance, I would be at peace because I did everything I possibly could within my control. And that would have been, I would have accepted it totally differently than I, did at 19.
Yeah. And you mentioned, FC Indiana, and you went to play on in or even the Ottawa Fury, and so in the women's professional game, that has changed, good, bad, otherwise, so much in even the last, even say 10 years, in terms of, and whether it be in the US, Europe, Australia. I think you played in Australia as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know you're a champion of women's football. What's it, being Canadian, being a national team player, it must be very frustrating not to be able to play in your country, but play for your country.
Yeah, I honestly, I speak to some of my teammates about this even today, some of the retired ones. We never even thought of it to play in Canada. It wasn't an option. I mean, the women's leagues across the world, if you remove the fact that in the last 5 years, it's been an absolute accelerator, everything sort of amplified in the last 5 years. I mean, I retired about 5 years ago. So think of when I was currently active as a player, the option to play in Canada wasn't even on the table. So we weren't missing anything. Like, it was like, oh, it's not possible. So let's all go find a daily training environment where we can stay fresh for Canada. That was really our main purpose, was always, it wasn't about making big bucks. That was never going to be what it was about. Canada couldn't provide a daily training environment, which was the ultimate currency. How can you become an ultimate professional without living it and breathing it every single day? So all of us sacrificed a lot, and, sacrifice is an interesting word. We made it happen for what our goals were. Let's put it that way. So we all did that. And to your point, I played in Italy right off the bat, like for one season. I played in Sweden for half a season, and I played in Australia for a full season. NWSL as well. I was part of the initial allocated cohort of Canadians in 2013 when the league started. Jumped around a few clubs, never really found my groove in the NWSL. The style, my athleticism, a few factors didn't play to my favor. But now being removed and knowing what's possible, which I have to thank, Europe and Mexico and the US for showing the world what's possible. I think it's only normal to want to feel part of that movement and feel as if there are more women getting that opportunity to feel what we know the sport can make you feel: elation, joy, triumphs, hardships, all the great things that the platform gives you. We want to provide that in Canada. I'm hoping that one day it gets off the ground and we can get everybody rowing in the same way, because our women deserve it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where the next thing I was going to say is from a national or an international standpoint, our women far exceed what the men do, and with all respect to them. If you think about not just the team in general and their ranking, but if you look at the higher profile players, they're playing Champions League, right? They're playing in the top leagues in Europe and still in WSL and things like that. But it's still amazing that it's not even, let's be honest, it's not even discussed about. It's not even in the conversation of, okay, now we have MLS, CPL, League One to a certain standpoint, right? To a certain extent, but it's still not even in the conversation about where that, where it should be.
Yeah. So for me, it's like this is where I stand for equality both ways. Like I want more than anything for the men's team to be as successful, but it not mean that it detracts attention, resources, momentum from the women's side. I want them to be equally as successful. Where equity comes in, it's different, right? Equity comes in because now we're saying, well, the men have this top end of the pyramid, if we want to call it a playing pyramid. They have the CPL opportunities. They have had MLS for the last decade or so. What is equitable? And what you bring up League One serves a very strong purpose. It just cannot be all things to all people. It's 3.5 months, and it primarily services the, college and university demographic. And that's sort of what it was built to do. So the women that are not being serviced in the sense of a longer season and more resources are the 22-year-olds plus. The ones that graduate out were exactly like me, where you think, well, what do I do now? Genuinely, I'm still healthy. I'm still hungry. I'm still keen. Where do I go? Well, really, what do I do now with my ambitions? That's where League One can continue to help these women to say, maybe we progress you into foreign environments. Maybe we help you get to where you want to go until we have our own option here. And that was always an idea I always floated around. Let's continue to help these women in the interim get to where they want to be. But while we're doing that, simultaneously, let's build an opportunity like the CPL. It doesn't have to look the same or the game format. I'm not caught up in how it's going to look because I have tons of ideas. We just all need to decide it's important. We can all decide on how. It may not be exactly copy and paste of what the men are doing, and that's okay too. And then we talk about when. A lot of people say, when's it happening? Well, there's a few steps before that need to be bridges that need to be crossed with all the decision makers in Canadian sport.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit, before we started here today about the whole purpose of having these conversations, and it really is about inclusion. And you mentioned that, and include like for you and growing up in the game, being a professional in the game, continuing to grow and develop your skills in the game. Have you come across any? I'm sure you have, but being a woman and not feeling like you're being included or given the same amount of respect that maybe a man would within the game. And if you have, can you kind of explain what that was and how you managed those situations?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as an aspiring technical staff, somebody who wanted to become a coach from an early age, having to go through the licensing. I started at my C license with Canada Soccer in BC. I started that in 2016. I progressed to get my Canadian B. I had to leave the nest based on the fact that there were no coaching opportunities. So I went and coached in Australia in the semi-pro league for 8 months in 2018. So I had a B license, and I realized very quickly that going to another part of the world, my B license wasn't going to hold up in another confederation. So I needed to fight for equivalency, and that was a crazy journey. So I said, listen, I'm going to go get my UEFA courses just because my ambitions might be global. In the absence of a place to coach here, I might have to go global. So, and then I was admitted into a course that was a B and A together. It was a combined pro with ex-pros. And I was a female ex-pro and I was the only female ex-pro in this course. So I went to Northern Ireland and I show up and I'm looking at the list of attendees and I recognize about 5 big names like Ricardo Carvalho from Real Madrid, like holy moly, and Thiago Mendes from Atletico Madrid had come together. And I'm looking and, it was crazy. And I'm thinking, not only am I a woman, I'm amongst the upper echelon of male elite players. And I realized within 2 days of that course that I was well within my realm. It was crazy. The conversations I was having, I did not feel like a fish out of water. The education, the experiences I did have under John Herdman allowed me, I had a language around football. And by the end of it, and I proved very quickly that I was just like everyone else, but it's intimidating. It's extremely intimidating. And I can see that that was one of the things where here in Canada, in the States, all over the world, you hear this from multiple women that some of the coaching courses, if they were to pursue a technical career, they can be intimidating because we're usually the minority in the group. And I know now that all the knowledge I have in the grassroots game here in Canada and the youth game, it tends to happen at all levels. The participation's about equal. Obviously girls are just a little less than boys in terms of the grassroots and youth. And then the second you progress to the next level of leadership and opportunity, it just dwindles. We're 19% of coaches, boardrooms aren't represented. So I'm a huge advocate for diversity and inclusion. They go hand in hand. But I always think of it this way, like as women for diversity, we want to be invited to the party, but we also need to be asked to dance. Right. So you can be at the table. I think that's step one, but that doesn't move the needle. Moving the needle is having male allies like yourself, I know you are, to continue to make those environments inclusive, safe, psychologically safe, emotionally safe, for women to feel like they can contribute. To be honest, like that cohort in Northern Ireland did for me. Those guys embraced me. They looked at me as an equal from the beginning, and they arm around me, let's go. I felt like one of the candidates. Not one of the boys. I just felt like one of the people in the room, and it was because of the male allies that still reach out today. They're fantastic.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's good you have those people you can reach out to that are or don't treat you any differently, no. Right? And show you that respect that you deserve. Yeah. Right. And you have just as much right to be there as they do. And we are, as an organization at Waterloo United, it's important for us, and it's a conversation we have every year when it comes to females coaching, right? And we do have what we call a leadership academy. So awesome. We have young players with 15, 16-year-olds that kind of get to kind of job shadow in a sense, and help out at our skill center of 9 and 10-year-olds and things like that. And 3/4 of those people in the Leadership Academy are females, right? And that's important to us to give them those experiences and allow them to have that leadership role and see if coaching is right for them, because not every player is going to be a professional player, right? But they can either, there's other areas they can do in the game, right? Like what you're doing, and whether that be, as an executive director or GM at a club or whatever it is. But we want to give them those leadership roles and know that they're valued. Yes. And there are opportunities. So it's great to hear that, you've had some good experiences in that area as well. Do you still, when you talk about mentors and people that you've relied on throughout the years, do you still have a close relationship with them? Do you still rely on them for advice from time to time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all, even the mentors have mentors. I just feel like it's important to, when I think of mentorship and being a mentee in a lot of the relationships I hold with people in the game, I just think, having a growth mindset, having people that are there to be your sounding board is extremely important. And like you said, at your club level, you can create those relationships. And I think your leadership program might even be a blueprint for other grassroots clubs, because I know that early exposure to leadership opportunities, whether it be through coaching, through an administrative shadow, apprenticeship, whatever it is, they're huge for planting the seeds and the right seeds. And then combined with hopefully one day being the full execution of the dream, the high end, you're going to get women pushing to get those professional opportunities to be the best in their industry. And that's where I think the ball is dropped, is basically we put a lot of time into the mentorship because they're going to be, these women, these young girls are going to be absolute leaders in our society. And that's what's key. But how do we retain them in sport?
Uh-huh.
In sport is where my passions, as you can tell, lie, and making sure that the sports management, it's not just a degree that we educate people here and send them off to go manage another club in another, like we want them to manage and do things here and have that real progression. So what you're doing at the club level is very important work, extremely actually. And also, like you said about my roles, I've done media, I've done administration, I've done technical leadership, and a lot of other keynotes and different speaking opportunities. Yes, professional playing, like there's a gamut of things that we can do. It's just now, I don't think many people know that though.
Yeah, I think that's true for our game, and it's in our country, right? People don't think that, or many people don't understand that there's so many different roles you can play within the game, even though you're not working for a professional club.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
There's different ways that you can either influence the game or your community. Right, and be that leader, and there's so many of those people and those leaders throughout the country that you think about the number of youth players, and definitely female youth players, from coast to coast. We're talking about hundreds of thousands, right? And and that's it's an important role that I think everybody involved in the game plays in the development. So.
Sorry, I will say one thing that maybe we don't, all of us don't talk about enough, and that has to do with even owning women-owned businesses that complement the sport. You think about the industries that exist around sport as well, and tying that with mission, like people's mission to feel purposeful and to help sport along. I know a dear friend, Chelsea Spencer, has her own facility now in Burlington, and it's like, whoa, she's opening our eyes to a new way. And, Sarah Orell, at Guelph, for example, the administrative excellence that she's bringing, Melanie Bradley, like, I don't think we need to look too far to find this level of inspiration. It's not far and wide. It's right in our backyard. Just highlighting and amplifying these women, I think, is really important. Yeah,
definitely. If there was one or two things that you could say to our female players, what would be, one or two pieces of advice you could give to them, soccer related or otherwise?
Yes. So what's really allowed myself, and I would say my most successful friends, and we can define success in another webinar, but what I would say is be curious about your capacity, like know what it is that you're able to sort of bring to this ecosystem, to the world. What are your gifts? I read something the other day that says, one of the meaning of life is to find your gifts, and the purpose is to give it away. Right. And I think that is so powerful, because it's just because something isn't visible, we know, doesn't mean it's not possible. Right. And it's a really call to action of the little girls and young women to like dream about, like, if you find that something you need is not currently in existence, then dream it into life. I mean, everything has started from that. So I would say, just be curious about what your gifts are and do anything you can to make those gifts come alive.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you. And I guess one question, or my final question, and you can give as much information as you like,
Sure.
but what does the future hold for you?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, listen, I don't get attached to people. I don't get attached to organizations or like for me, it's a cause. I'm attached to the cause. I'm attached to the purpose and the opportunity within women's football. So I'm going to continue to be a builder in women's football. Hopefully stateside, but at least regionally. I know that's going to be important as I continue to pour in my days into building the women's game. And because again, there's so many people paying attention to the growth of the men's game. Equity tells me that we might need to do double the work in the region to lift everybody up. So that's my goal, to be an ambassador, to be a builder, and honestly, in any way, shape, or form, make this game better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Very inspiring words. And again, I want to congratulate you on your career so far. I want to thank you for everything you do within the game and everything you do specifically for female athletes. I want to thank you for being a supporter of grassroots football and being on this call today. And thank you for taking the time. I know you have a very busy schedule, but I appreciate you providing your wisdom to our players, and you're welcome back at the club anytime. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I do have to say before we sign off, thank you to all that you do for the game as well. I know you're an ally and a builder and, run one of the best organizations in the province, and I can confidently say that. So thank you for all that you do to grow the game as well.
Excellent. Thanks again.